presentations, but I do have a deputation by appointment, Derek McCulloch and Linda Rutland, on behalf of the Mount Pleasant Memorial Community Centre and Residents Association. I'm just mindful of the fact that this is on the agenda as a public excluded item, number 21. So in terms of come forward. I'm just suggesting to councillors that there may have to be a degree of circumspection around questioning in relation to what is a public excluded item later on, but we're very much looking forward to your presentation. Wow, even more so.
Can you do the lights?
Okay. Dim the lights.
Action.
Lights, camera. Good morning.
Mayor, councillors, thank you very much for listening to our plea for your support. I'll move through it as quickly as we can. I think it's the usual system, isn't it? The dots. Usually arrows. There we go. So just a quick recap on who we are. The association has been going for 60 years and we're financially independent for all that time. For 5 years we've been operating from a temporary centre, the little ex-St Thomas's classroom that you see there, which we bought with our own money at $50,000, but we needed something to continue our community work while we rebuilt. And our business plan shows that once the building is opened, we will once again be financially independent. The new building, although it looks quite grand and flash, is actually smaller than the building that it replaces, but it's far better designed and has more flexible spaces. The funding has come, as you see, from 38% insurance monies, not 100% as we thought we were going to have in our lease with the council, 52% from grants, 8% of which from the Merrill Earthquake Relief Fund. And I just emphasise that this is not ratepayers' money, but money that was donated or to the council to distribute. And donations and fundraising, which we continue to do. You'll see from my T-shirt, one of our fundraising things, the Mount Pleasant beer. And then finally, just to get us over the line, we've got a 10% loan, $500,000 from the council. To meet these loan obligations, which count at about $1,300 per week, which is quite a significant loading on a community centre, we must be open and earning revenue, and to do that we need code compliance, and to get code compliance requires civil and earthworks to be complete. These are funded, as you probably know, from a grant that you generously gave us late last year, based on a Camo Marsh estimate, which was done at some haste, I must admit, to get it to the meeting. And unfortunately, when we got this plan costed out, it was a little bit more than $377,000, came in at $805,000, which took us back a bit. So we met with Lee's and we scaled back just to the code compliance areas, and so we've knocked it back to $663,000. You can see from this shot that how the knockback has occurred. You'll see significantly less landscaping, which we think we can do with community support in time to come, but also amenity values. The front decks, which have a lovely view of the estuary and which would be great for earning revenue, have been knocked back. But we've met with Lee's again, in fact as late as 4:30 yesterday afternoon, and we've met with council staff. In fact, I must compliment Lee Butcher, the project manager that you put to our case. He was fantastic in going through our plan line by line to see what we could set up. But we've now got it down to that we need about $303,000 of extra funding. The importance about no delays are twofold. As I said earlier, we need to have the building open so that we can earn revenue to pay back the loan, but also the significant cost increases if you run over. For example, P&G's the preliminaries in general is 54,000 if we have to start again after the lease contract finishes. So there is considerable savings to getting it done in a timely fashion. So we've been able to keep the shortfall to this amount because of the input from the community, up to $100,000, but probably more importantly, in the thousands and thousands of community hours, volunteer hours that have gone into it. I mean, I remember sitting with Linda back in 2011 with the insurance assessor who told us that we weren't getting 100%, we were getting 38%, and not only that, we had to arrange our own demolition and have to arrange the whole thing. So for us, this is a 15-year project, 5 years to demolish the old building, build a new building, and then 10 years to repay the loan. That's going to keep us really busy for that time. So we just saying once again, although we're not council owned, we do provide the same services to the Mount Pleasant community as a council owned facility would that they provide to their communities. And although this building project has been a huge time factor in our committee, we still managed to run community events like the ones you've seen. The Estuary Fest, which was very successful this year, and a month later we've had the house tour, which was not only a good community event but raised a significant amount of money. So we would like you to support us. We think you would get a community centre in the largest community east of the Ferrymead Bridge for a fraction of the cost that it would have cost you if you had done it yourselves. Thank you. I just asked Linda to add any comments to that.
Yeah, I guess I just want to say that the underinsurance of our property has really impacted on us. It had, it meant a loss of about $4 million to us, and we're a very independent organisation, so we've just tried to meet that ourselves, and it's really been at a huge cost to us. And also then going into having a $500,000 loan, it's huge. So unfortunately, we can't say that we've done it on budget. There is a 10% overrun, but we understand that that's quite normal with projects. We haven't done a project like this before. And so the civil and earthworks are just a bridge too far for us to go. So we really need your support. We've still got fundraising to do on the building itself and for the fit out, so we just simply can't go this step further. So we really would be grateful for your support.
I should add perhaps just that some of the cost for the overrun was because we had to raise it a metre, so suddenly we're building ramps to all the entrances, which are a lot more than you would imagine. But it does have to have universal access to be a community centre, so there are things like this that we've had to pick up that weren't in the original costings.
I'm just getting some renewed advice on whether we have to consider this as a PX matter now, because you've really disclosed all of the information that we felt was commercially sensitive. So I'm taking that advice, and that won't be instantaneous. So these lawyers, I don't know, they just sort of seem to take their time in working these things out. But I'll be reasonably free-flowing around questions then. Tim and then Paul.
I have another question. You mentioned it's a 15-year program. You've got 5 years to get to this stage, basically, and then the 10-year to pay off the loan. So that 10-year financial plan to pay off the loan also, obviously, I hope would include the ongoing maintenance, although it's a new building. So that's all been planned into that 10-year plan?
Yeah, maintenance and operating costs. So
they're over and above the figure that we showed you just to service the loan.
Yeah. And with regards to the completion of the building, there will be a builder's guarantee on that building to ensure any hiccups or faults, etc. How long is that agreement, if I'm allowed to ask?
I wouldn't know. It's just a standard.
I think
we had it all checked by legal.
The building contract included all the standard warranties that builders get, so it was enough for us to access the funding that we needed from lotteries. They all required that as well, so we feel confident that we have got ourselves covered in that regard.
Thank you.
Paul.
I didn't actually have a question. I was scratching my eyebrow. I do.
I can't believe, I mean, you've been a strong advocate for
I'm
this.
not advocating, I'd rather the other members,
Okay.
I'm coming actually,
Well aware of it.
we're well aware of all the issues, so I'd rather the other members actually ask questions.
Phil, David, Glenn.
So, Derek, look, thank you very much for your perseverance and your hard work. Look, I just wanted to ask you to elaborate a wee bit on the civil and earthworks that need to be done, which clearly have increased the cost, because you referred to the building now needing to be at a higher level and access issues. Are there any other aspects around the civil or engineering earthworks that you could...
Well, I should point out that if you notice from the screen that I've got up there at the moment, that most of this, a lot of the work is for car parking, and which also is an amenity value to the McCormick's Bay Reserve next door. You can see that brown rectangular shape is actually a children's playground, and being on the hills, it's one of the only flat playground areas, so it's widely used by the entire community. And it's accessible. It's also going to be used by the coastal pathway users. So there's amenity values around car parking. Of course, lighting has to be done along with car parking. So there are those sorts of amenity values that it includes, as well as just access to the building.
Okay. Thanks, John.
Yeah, David.
Thank you. You mentioned that you've scaled back your requirements, and it's been at the cost of some of your landscaping and decking. How do you propose to actually continue with those at some stage, or are they off the radar for quite a while?
No, we would still like to proceed, particularly with the decking, because that, in the original business plan, formed a big part of how we can repay the loan. Because, as you can imagine, a substantial deck with a view of the estuary at a metre higher will be an attraction not only for the community users but also for others who would want to come and see the fantastic building. But also one of our tenants is the Estuary Trust, and there's a possibility of an educational centre sort of thing happening where you can actually view the estuary and the bird life and all that sort of stuff.
So what sort of cost do you envisage, and how are you going to fund that part of it?
That will be a separate funding exercise that we will go. I think the costings are around 120.
I'm not sure.
100 thing. But we're conscious at this point that our primary concern is to get the building open and running, and that we will add amenity values as and when we can.
But you are, to a degree, compromising your ability to generate revenue.
To a degree we are. There's no doubt about that, but we can still, I think, inside the building we have, and there are small decks, but it compromises it in the way of its sort of marketability for weddings, things like that, which are going to be an essential part of our revenue generation.
So that would add another circa 120k to the...
Possibly.
Thank you.
Glenn and then Paul.
Thank you, Derek and Linda. I'm just looking just some specificity then. So the civil and earthworks I take to be the actual any ground treatment and lifting, what's is proposed by council, obviously. Yep. Are you saying, is it that and also a car park, playground and lighting?
No, not the playground. The playground's already there. The reference to the playground was just to point out that the civil and earthworks that will be putting in will be used by the public or people not necessarily using the centre. That it'll be have a wider use than that. But it is primarily the requirement to have 36 car parks, the requirement to have universal access and ramps, and to have lighting and all of those sorts of things.
Okay.
That's a significant part of the cost.
Yep.
Paul?
Some of the questions have been answered around the fact that you are supplying a car park area for our playground as a council. So the question I had is, with the drop-off of the amenity, which is the decking, does that actually take away accessibility for certain parts of our community? So in other words, there's quite a large area of reserve in front of your building if I was physically challenged, would I have a problem accessing that from this building?
No, you'd come out,
With the, I'm talking about actually out the front there, though, Derek, the part where you've got all the decks.
right, no, you'd be required to come around to the other side of the building to use a ramp. We've cut the ramps down from 2 to 1 as part of that, but you would be able to access the building if you had a disability.
But if you're if you're in the building and you're going out to the estuary side of the building, if I'm in a wheelchair or if I've got some physical disability, is it going to impede me from actually exiting the building?
It makes the whole access thing much more difficult.
Yes.
And because and also you've got children and stuff as well,
so
and
we can just
there's all
turn
that
on
lawn, and it does make the whole
So
accessibility.
it does,
Yeah.
this change has compromised accessibility.
Yeah, the reason the decks went in was for the accessibility.
Okay, that's
So-
the question I was asking.
Yanni?
Yeah, thank you. So just so I'm clear, what's the difference in cost between these two plans? And what's the difference of
137.
doing it as part of all the works now versus coming back and doing it later? Surely there's a cost saving if you do it now, and things like consent, building consent.
Well, it was that whole
fees.
P&G that we saved, and also that we would have to bring on another contractor and get them all up to speed again, and it would be delay, and then we'll be opening later, and it's a lot of
So I was
cost.
just trying to understand the cumulative impact of not having it completed to the standard that, originally was proposed, will add like several $100,000 or through loss of revenue and increased costs.
Well, I think when we were with Lee, we got to a figure of about 125,000 that can be saved by doing it immediately, and that's comprised. The largest single item of that is P&G from not having to get a new contractor on board, but also the delay in opening it compromises, because our loan to the council has to be repaid whether we're open or not from the moment we draw down. So we need to start earning as quickly as we can. So the other part of the cost is significant cost is the inability to earn money while we're still paying back the council loan. So.
And the other thing, it is quite sad after all this time, 5 years of really hard slog, the opening a centre, which is quite reduced.
Yeah, we're not happy with the outcome, but we're doing the best we can. And we would like to open a fully accessible building with full decks and full amenity value. But our capacity to borrow any more money is completely gone. And as Linda said, we've still got fit out to do. We've still got to find some shortfall for the actual building. And it's, there is no ratepayer dollar in the building at this stage. It is.
In order to get what we want, instead of your 303, it's 430.
428.
428.
That was the...
And that gets you what you had originally envisaged, and still you can do that at this stage?
At this stage we could do
There's some
that.
urgency around this.
Yes,
request, isn't there?
yes.
Thanks.
That's the 433. Can I just ask a question around the insurance proceeds? Because I'm still a little unclear, and probably there was an earlier paper that I've forgotten the detail of. You received 1.497593.49 insurance proceeds. What would you have got if it had been properly insured?
About 4 million, 4.2 million.
4.2 million.
Well,
And
the
what-
value would have
It
to
was
be
replacement.
of replacement value.
Yes.
Replacement value?
Yeah.
And you've got, that was the value of the building, that was a proper valuation of the building. It wasn't underinsured because it wasn't properly valued, it was...
There wasn't a proper valuation.
Right.
So, yeah, but we now know to replace that building, even on a smaller footprint, has cost this much money.
Right.
So, yeah.
I think, yeah. So, okay.
So we just got what was given, what they said was the terms of the council's insurance.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're now...
Even though our lease specified replacement value insurance being part of it, it was only when we came to talk to our assessors that we realised that the Civic Assure or whatever had put it at indemnity value, not replacement value, and we got an email basically saying, this is it, go away and build a new building.
Because you managed it, we never ever saw what our insurance was. We never saw any documentation over years and years and years, and it wasn't till the fatal.
Presumably, you're self-insured, I mean, you're insuring yourselves.
We are, indeed. We are going to take that particular role ourselves from now on. Thank you.
Fair enough. Paul?
Can you just inform the other members here, this has actually got a war memorial status and how that came about. Some of that bit of history might be actually quite useful just to understand some of the history.
Very briefly, after the Second World War, the government had a scheme that where they would subsidise war memorials. Most of them, as you probably know, are gates and cenotaphs and things like that, whereas the Mount Pleasant community were clever in thinking they wanted a living memorial, so they did the community centre. So the arrangement was that the City Council would provide the land and maintenance, and that the government would fund dollar for dollar whatever the local community could raise. So that was the agreement in 1956, I think, 57?
I mean, it was built in 4, it was established, it was before.
Sorry, but yeah, 54. So, but that's why its official title is the Mount Pleasant War Memorial Centre. We think this time we want to keep it as a memorial centre open so that it's also an earthquake memorial centre as well, because we think that's what it is memorialising at this stage.
Right. Tim?
Could I just clarify? So the first meeting with regards to trying to meet co-compliance with Lees was 663, and then you've managed to cut it back to 428, and then to bare bones is 303, even though the council requirements raised the building a metre, which I would imagine added the costs quite significantly.
No, that's 303 above the 377 that we've already been given by the council earlier.
And the difference between achieving your full plan is the difference between 303 and 428. So the difference is 125,000.
Correct. Yep.
Right, well, look, thank you very much. I mean, as I say, we're still taking advice on the matter as to whether it should be dealt with in PX later or not. If it is, then it is simply because of the detailed costings and contracts and things like that, which, you know, are best kept close, because obviously in a contracting environment they're confidential to the parties. But I mean, obviously we would make the announcement soon afterwards, so that there was no delay between, you know, the decision and the outcome. Obviously you're on a tight time frame. Thank you very much.
Thank you both. Thank you all.
Right, so the next item